Welcome, everybody. This is Brian. Hey, I just finished the edit of this James Bond mini episode. Our mini episodes are actually like almost an hour and 15 minutes at this point. We're out of control. But I just finished this edit. I'm here by myself. Sarah is out and about taking care of business. So this is just me for a brief introduction. Hey, firstly, I want to thank everybody who helped us out with our last episode, which was the 5th anniversary episode. If you sent in a voicemail, that was awesome, and we really appreciate it. If you chimed in on social media, that was awesome too, because it made us feel like stars for a day or two. So that was pretty groovy. So thanks to everybody who reached out to us on what was a big event for the two of us. Secondly, I want to apologize to Pete Rogers. He was waiting on this James Bond episode because he had a long drive ahead of him. I don't know exactly when that drive was, but I hope I'm getting it out in time for your trip. If not, I apologize, buddy. And I want to also thank Mr. Andy Shaw, who was just part of a live podcaster conversation that Sarah and I did on the Pods and Sods Network a couple weeks ago for Halloween. And Andy is actually the only person who's ever said, hey, when's your next James Bond episode going to come out? So that was kind of cool to have somebody actually interested in our 007 mini episodes. So Andy, this one is for you. We're dedicating this episode to you. Finally, we want to thank Mr. Robbie Sims, he of the golden voice. There's a golden gun, there's golden eye. Well, Robbie is the guy with golden voice. We want to thank him for taking the time out to talk with us about You Only Live Twice. It was a treat for us, as always, because Robbie is so funny and so knowledgeable about James Bond. If you haven't gotten a hold of his book yet, his book is hilarious. It's called Quantum of Silliness, The Peculiar World of Bond, James Bond. And I'm going to point out in the episode that it's perfectly shaped and sized for a Christmas stocking. So this is the time of year to get it. Give it to the Bond fan in your life. I just ordered one, actually. I finished the episode. I logged into Amazon and ordered a copy for the Quizmaster's wife, Missy, for Christmas, because she's a huge Bond fan, and I like talking to her about James Bond, and I said, you know what? Missy needs a copy of this. So if you see Missy, don't tell her. We'll try to surprise her. So, thanks for downloading this. I'm going to cue my friend Colby with his Sean Connery impersonation here, and we're going to kick off this episode. We're going to talk about You Only Live Twice. So thanks, everybody.
Welcome to the Permanent Record Podcast, 007 Mini Broadcast. A quick, concise discussion on the music of James Bond. From 1962 up through today, we'll cover it all. Unless Spectre gets to us first.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Permanent Record Podcast 007 Mini Broadcast. I'm so excited to be here again, talking with two wonderful people that are very, very knowledgeable about James Bond. One of them, of course, is my trusty co-host, always at my side, Mr. Brian.
Goodbye, Mr. Bond.
And we're also joined by wonderful guest who we've had on a few times before and are happy to have on again, Mr. Robbie Sims.
Woo! Hello, guys. Hi, Brian. Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Hey, Robbie. How are things going in London?
Really good. A little chilly, a little rainy. You've seen Skyfall. You know what the weather's like here. But yeah, it's good. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, good. It's cool and windy here today. Very breezy and blustery, I'd say, but it's sunny. So we've got that going for us.
Nice. Well done for that.
Yep. It's a perfect day to hang out inside and talk about Gentleman Secret Agent 007. Although, you know what? He's not much of a gentleman, is he? Not in every case.
The Connery years have some dubious gentlemanly behavior, certainly. Yes.
Exactly. Just so you can see, I'm wearing a little...
Oh, my Lord. A little bit of Brozza. I'm glad to see Brozza getting some love. I mean,
that's right.
You know, going to be a while before we hit his tenure.
That's true.
In this journey.
Yeah.
He's Sarah's favorite. And I don't know if we told you this before, Robbie, or maybe we did. We have a college down the road from our house called Dickinson College. It used to be a law school, but now I think it's more than just that.
Yeah, it still focuses primarily on law, but they do other things too.
Yeah, and like 3 years ago, the speaker at their graduation was Mr. Pierce Brosnan. And so there were people all over our hometown who like were, just shopping downtown at the stores and going to restaurants, and on Facebook, it would pop up like, we ran into James Bond in town today, and they'd have pictures standing next to Pierce Brosnan. And meanwhile, we're sitting at home watching all this happen, and we didn't even think to go try to find him.
We could have driven like eight minutes, and we would have been, probably very close to him.
So near and yet so far. They say never meet your idols, so maybe it was just, it was meant to be.
Yep, probably right, because if Sarah had met him, she would have tried to run off with him. He's her number one Bond, so it's better for me that we didn't see him. Folks, we're here to talk today about mainly the theme song to the 5th Bond installment, You Only Live Twice. We're going to talk about some of the John Barry music for that score, I'm sure, because it's a fantastic score. Before we get started, the last time we talked to Robbie, we lived in a certain world. It was a pre-No Time to Die world. So when you get someone on the horn here, like Mr. Sims, you've got to find out what he thinks about the new Bond movie. We're going to try to do this in a non-spoiler way, because I know not everybody has seen it. Robbie.
Hello.
Hello. You've seen No Time to Die. Do you think this was a fitting finale for the Daniel Craig era of James Bond?
To keep it short, yes. I mean, it was a tough act to pull off. They had a lot to tie up. It's a long film. It's an epic film. And yeah, there's stuff in there which, if you told me before going to see it, this is going to happen, I'd have been like, no, I don't want this anywhere near a James Bond film. But it works. It works as a whole. I haven't seen it yet. Do go and see it on a big screen. I feel like it's a really beautiful looking film. We won't talk too much about Zimmer in case that sort of preempts our chat when we get to No Time to Die in 2067 or something.
Right.
But yeah, I love the score. I love the cinematography. Like any Bond film, if you stop and think about the plot for more than 10 minutes, it sort of starts to fall apart. But I was along for the ride and I enjoyed it a lot. How about you guys?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the movie. Again, it was beautiful to look at. Cinematography was lovely. They always have excellent scenes, sceneries and backdrops. Music was great, did the trick and, building the action and enhancing the drama when it needed to. And the story, there were some holes. There were some things you said, oh, really? But that is pretty much every James Bond movie, isn't it? But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Glad I got to see it in the theater.
I really enjoyed it as well. I didn't think it felt like a 2-hour and 45-minute film. Even the second time I saw it, when I knew what was going to happen, it still flew by really quickly, I thought. Did you have that same experience?
Yeah. In fact, I did a poll on Twitter saying which film felt longer, Spectre, which is 15 minutes shorter, or No Time to Die. And about, 75% said Spectre felt like a longer film, even though it's less. So that shows, they were doing something right this time around to keep the momentum going forwards. I mean, the third act is still a little bit like Wading Through Treacle to me, but a lot of Bond films do that when it gets to the sort of base and you've got kind of machine gun fire going everywhere. It always can get a little bit drawn out. But there's enough going on that you're still emotionally involved in it. So yeah, I was very happy with it.
Have you taken the dive, and have you already incorporated this movie into your overall film rankings, or do you need to see it a few more times before you do that?
It's still settling. I could easily sort of place it towards the top tier, I would say. I don't know if it would go top 5, but let's say top 10 at the moment. It's still
cool.
Too new though.
I didn't feel ready to put it in my overall rankings, but I did decide that it's my 3rd favorite Daniel Craig movie, which I like it more than that. Like if you hear me say that, you're going to say, oh, it's only average then. I think it's above average. It's just that I think Skyfall and Casino Royale are so awesome. It has to be 3rd, but it's still a really good movie.
Yeah. It's doing that Star Trek thing of being good, bad, good, bad. The ratio has tipped in his favor. Yeah, exactly. We've got 3 good ones and 2. Okay, I could still watch these in my pants on a Sunday morning and enjoy it, but it's not going to be my favorite.
Exactly. So even though we're not going to talk about this song for a long, long time, since we are a music podcast, I really like the theme song. I don't really know Billie Eilish. I knew her name, but I had never listened to any of her music. I enjoyed the song a lot. What did you guys think about the theme?
I liked it when I first heard it, and then it sort of slipped away from me a bit. I was kind of like, okay, it's fine. But when you see it in the context of the film, I think it sort of, it congeals. It does something good. Congeals, and it sounds unpleasant, doesn't it? But it does something better than congeal. It coalesces. There we go.
There we
go.
Into something. Yeah. Apparently, Billie Eilish and Phineas, is that her brother?
Yeah.
They'd been given the script for the pre-title sequence. So everything leading up to the song in the film, they had the script for. So they wrote their song just purely based on the opening scenes of the film. Once you know that, you can kind of hear that in the lyrics that they have only got to that point in the story. But that works as a viewer. You know, that's emotionally, that's where you are in the story. So the song works in that moment.
Right. It's not giving anything away. I would say I like the song definitely more in the context of the opening credits and in the film itself. It's a ballad, of course. You know, they keep leaning towards these slower songs the last few movies, and that's fine. And it's not as powerful as Skyfall, but then again, that's like a top level Bond theme, I think.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too.
It's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's terribly bad or terribly wonderful. It's just fine.
So we're going to talk today about You Only Live Twice, which was Sir Sean's fifth Bond adventure. This is like a pretty iconic film. You know, this is the one, like, I think when people think about the James Bond mythos and the characters and the way James Bond movies work and look, even if they're not aware of it, I think this is one of the top three films that they think of. So before we talk about the music, let's just talk about the movie. Do you guys think this is one of the best examples of James Bond?
Me, I would say, yeah, I would, because it's got all the things that by this point everyone is expecting in a James Bond film. It's got international locations, it's got crazy villains, it's got crazy plots and all kinds of gadgets. It has all those ingredients, and I think they're pretty well done for the most part too. So yeah, I think you're right in that this movie is part of the classic James Bond experience. And when people think of James Bond, I mean, let's think about the parodies of James Bond, like Austin Powers, and how many things from that movie did they take from this movie? So I think that is a signal right there that this movie has made quite an impact in the pop culture of the last, 75 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that as well, Sarah, about Austin Powers. The fact that Mike Myers has obviously sort of got a love or an affection for this film above some of the others. And yeah, a lot of the scenes are riffing on stuff from You Only Live Twice. Like you say, it's an iconic film. It's epic. They've got the formula sorted since Goldfinger. They've kind of worked out what they're doing and why people are coming to see these films. But then they've got a bit giddy on their own success, and the formula is starting to sort of heave under its own preposterousness a little bit, which is fine. You know, we all need a moonraker every now and again. So I'm happy that Sean kind of gets his daft, preposterous film. But yeah, for me, it's a little too daft. I think some of the plot points are a little bit ridiculous. I love the set, of course, that Ken Adams does in the volcano. Ken Adams does a great job building this huge underground lair, the first monorail of the franchise. Always exciting to see. It's a very fun watch, I would say. It's one of those classic ones, lots of iconic moments, and very much rooted in the 60s. You still got that sort of swinging 60s vibe about it, which is nice.
I said, all these things about it being the things that people think of when they think of Bond. However, I don't think that necessarily means it's a great film. I probably ranked this one. I think last time I did this, I think I ranked it at like 14. So it's lower than halfway for me. There are things in it that I really like. It's very cool to have poison drip down a string into someone's mouth. Like as a kid, I thought that was awesome. And I still do. And in theory, Little Nelly is a pretty cool thing. The Lair is awesome. But like after 4 movies of this shadowy figure of Blofeld, there's just something about like when you see Blofeld, he doesn't quite live up to the picture in my mind from the first 4 movies. Donald Pleasance is probably my second favorite Blofeld. I really like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, so I always give Telly Savalas the nod for number 1, even if he is a very American Blofeld.
Yeah, but he looks like he'd actually punch you properly in the face, whereas the other Blofelds don't look like they would get physically involved.
I agree.
Right. The one thing when I think about this movie, the thing that really, really disappoints me is, I can't remember, I meant to write these names down, is the one evil henchwoman named Helga.
Helga Brandt. Yes,
Helga Brandt.
Played by Corinne Dorr.
She seems like they're trying really, really hard to me to recreate the awesome character from Thunderball, the red-haired evil girl who was in the bathtub when Bond walked in and she's like, give me something to wear. And he hands her the shoes.
Yeah, Fiona Volpe.
Fiona.
Yes.
She's like my favorite Bond, even though I can't remember her name. She's my favorite Bond evil woman in the whole series. And it seemed like they were trying really hard to me to recreate that character, and they didn't come close to doing it.
Yeah, they've got another redhead and thought that was kind of close enough, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. Fiona Volpe as a sort of henchwoman is, one of the first evil lady, apart from Rosa Klebb, of course, first evil lady Bond girl that we had. So very happy with her. But Corinne Dor, she's sort of in the mix there, and I don't think she's quite as essential as some of the other elements of the film.
Agreed. Something that I really like in the movie, something that I always enjoy seeing, is that scene on the rooftop where Bond is fighting a lot of people. It's just directed really well. Like a camera is kind of far away and just pans with him as he runs across the roof. There's something with the visuals and the music in that scene that work really, really well for me.
It's a lovely sweeping shot, and it does kind of counterintuitively, it does what you don't expect to happen, because usually in a fight scene you would, if anything, move into the action and see kind of what's happening. Whereas this almost sort of drifts away in such a way as to say, look, Bond's got it covered. He's going to get out of this. You know, he's reaching superhero status of it, almost.
That's true.
That's kind of what they're saying. And he does indeed sort of fight off at least a dozen men just by sort of waving a stick at them and they all fall over. And then, it's an amazingly epic shot. And I think Barry is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there to sort of sell it as a moment, because the fanfare is really great at that point.
Yeah. John Barry really comes through with a great score in this movie. Depending on the day of the week, this is my second or third favorite of all the Bond scores. I can never decide if I like this one or Majesty's better, so I always just wimp out and say it's either 2 or 3.
Yeah, I did a John Barry kind of nominate your 4 favorite Barry tracks thing on Twitter, and this didn't make it just. I was really umming and ahhing about it, but it's a good one. It just didn't quite get to the top for me. It's beautiful. Barry is still kind of finding his way around the sound of Bond, but he's obviously, since Goldfinger, has kind of hit the floor running. So it's working very well for me.
I love this score. I think it's really well done. One of my very favorite pieces of Bond music in the whole entire series is in this movie. In the beginning with the space capsule, when it started to swallow the other ship. And that is just iconic music. It was even kind of replicated later on in the movie The Incredibles. The piece of music is called Kronos, I believe. And you can hear they're really trying to make it sound like this song.
Yeah, they do such a good job of, like, the instruments that they use sound just like instruments that Barry would have used.
Right.
You get the feeling like, well, no one could sue them because it's not that close, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned, Robbie, is that, John Barry's finding his feet and he's starting to develop like this Bond sound. One of the things that I think is interesting about this soundtrack is that this is really the first soundtrack that John Barry is called on to write in a world that has become swept up in Bond. Like, there's so much Bond influenced spy music in the world right now. I just wrote down some examples. There was The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Danger Man, Mission Impossible, Our Man Flint. John Barry even did the soundtrack for Ipcris Files, Harry Palmer film. Like, spy music was all the rage, and never before had John Barry had to compose a soundtrack in a world that really cared about spy music. I wonder if that had anything to do with what I think is a huge jump in the quality of the soundtrack. When I watched the earlier movies, Thunderball, Goldfinger, I like the music in the film, but sitting down and listening to the Goldfinger soundtrack, for instance, like, I don't get into it nearly as much as I do this movie. I just think this album is such a huge jump. And I wonder if the way the world was going musically at the time, if that helped John Barry raise his game.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that they must have been sort of more self-aware or aware of what the Bond sound was, not from their own perspective, but from the fact that the world was sort of swept up in it. In a way, you lose control of the creature you've created, and it becomes everybody else's idea of what a Bond soundtrack should or could sound like. And that's a good thing or a bad thing. It means you've got something to write for, and you've got a sound that you're trying to achieve. But it also means you could, like I said earlier, you can become kind of too self-aware and too sort of heavy, too weighed down by the expectations and everything that's come before it. But hey, he's doing a good job. He's on an upwards trajectory here, is Barry. My favorite score is On Her Majesty's, which is obviously what's around the corner next. So I think it's all going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a more accomplished composer at this point too, right? I mean, he's done other scores in this time period as well. So he's just got more experience, and that may also inform his abilities in this movie.
If I was living in the 60s in London, I probably wouldn't get any work done. I'd be far too distracted by the fact that everyone's swinging. But he somehow managed to be prolific and, by all accounts, have a pretty good social life himself. So yeah, well done him.
Yep.
Nice work-life balance, as they say today.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so the Nancy Sinatra version of this song, which is the one we all know and love.
Strange you would specify it like that. I wonder why.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get into that. It did pretty well in the charts. It got to number 11 in the UK, which is really nice. Number 44 in the US on the regular Billboard 100, and number 3 on the US Adult Contemporary chart. And it also charted in Canada and Australia. In Australia, it got to number 10, and in Canada, it only got to number 39.
So this was only a top 10 single in Australia.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Australia comes up all the time on this podcast, and it's either they like something that nobody else likes, or they really dislike something that the rest of the world embraces. So this is another case. They took Nancy.
I think it has to do with the fact that they're on the southern hemisphere and everything is backwards up and flipped.
That might be it.
What else do you want to talk about with the facts?
The facts, I would say that the soundtrack album was released on May 22nd or May 23rd here in the US back in 1967. And that was about 2 or 3 weeks before the movie premiered. The film premiered on June 12th and June 13th, depending on whether you were in the UK or the US. And that full album, the John Barry soundtrack, it actually premiered in the US charts in the top 40.
Oh.
And then managed to climb its way up to number 27 before dropping off the charts. But I thought that was cool. I think that was the first Bond album here in the US to make the top 40 on the album charts.
I think that just speaks to the popularity of Bond films and spy music in general, and probably the quality of the score.
I think it speaks to all those things.
This song, as we've talked about, I think with other Bond themes, had a couple different versions. And there was a version prior to the Nancy Sinatra version that was recorded. So that one was originally recorded with a woman named Julie Rogers and a 50-ish piece orchestra. So Julie Rogers was at that time a really well-known and established British artist. She had had a few hits. Her biggest hit was in around 1964, 1965 with a song called The Wedding Song. And it was huge. It was number 3 in the UK, number 10 in the US, and it's sold millions and millions of records all over the world. Very beloved song. And then she had a couple of follow-up hits after that in 1965. So she was kind of, riding high and very popular, well-known. So they like to get folks like that for the Bond theme. So they reached out to her and her people and asked her to record a song. And of course, she jumped at the chance.
You only live twice, no more than twice, and each life you live, your place.
So she recorded it and she thought, okay, then we're done with that. And I can't wait to hear this in the movie. That did not happen.
And her song was actually called You Only Live Twice, right?
Yeah.
It still had that same name?
It was. It is not exactly the same as the one that we hear now, but there were a couple lines that were used. Most of the lyrics were different too. And by the way, the lyricist for this was the same as the previous Bond theme. It was Leslie Bricusse.
No, that he wrote Goldfinger, not Thunderball.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry. We've seen Leslie Bricusse before. His lyrics, he was in Goldfinger, and now he's come back for You Only Live Twice. He wrote the lyrics for both these versions, but in the end, they did not use this version of the song for the theme, Julie Rogers' version.
Now, Robbie, I'm sure you've heard this song before, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, when we spoke about Thunderball last time, we almost came to blows because I'm a big Tom Jones fan. And I remember you said you were more of a fan of Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang than you were of Tom's song Thunderball. So what this time around, do you think they made the right decision? Do you think it was right to jettison this initial attempt?
Yeah, I think Nancy Sinatra, she's not the best singer in the world. And I know we're going to go on to talk about the sort of laborious production of the single the song that we finally get. But there's a quality to her voice, which is quite fragile, which suits the song. They did the right thing. I just hope they told Julie Rogers before the premiere that she wasn't the actual chosen artist. Because if you sat down in the front row thinking, oh, here we go, and then heard Nancy Sinatra, you're going to be sad.
You sure are. I will say this. Julie seems far more comfortable injecting drama into the song with her voice. I can hear her trying to do what Shirley Bassey does in Goldfinger, the way she sings the song and enunciates. Unfortunately, at least for me, it's a little too much in this first, like I laugh at a lot of her vocals just because she's so over the top with it. And I think I never laugh at Shirley. She's the dame, but Julie couldn't pull it off. Do you guys agree with that or no?
Well, yeah, I think the song itself does not warrant that type of a vocal delivery. Honestly, even this initial version of the song is a lot more delicate than the two previous themes that we've had. And her voice is much more suited, like you said, for a bombastic type of a theme song, like Shirley Bassey. I don't think it works here. I think the instrumentals and her voice just don't work together. The instrumentals in this are okay. I think he did improve in the second version and the one we know. But yeah, her vocals are just not the right fit.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's good that they didn't go down the bombastic route again. It would be very easy just to take that template that they already had from Goldfinger and Thunderball and do another kind of knock it out the park, massive notes at the end kind of thing. But the fact that they don't do that is testament to the fact that they were still willing to experiment within the formula and do something that wasn't maybe what you might expect. I think that what you say is quite right, Sarah. The song itself is just a completely different beast to Thunderball or Goldfinger. I'm glad that they had the money, frankly, to do it all again after hiring a 50-piece orchestra. Most people would be like, okay, well, we spent the money now, let's just use that. But they actually went back and decided. John Barry himself said he didn't think it was quite coalescing, to use that word again. So it was good that they had the budget, frankly, to do it again with Nancy.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Sarah, Robbie, you just mentioned it was good that they were willing to break from the format. One of the things that they did not break from the format with, as Sarah mentioned, was they called back Leslie Bricusse to work with John Barry on the lyrics. He had worked on Goldfinger. I just wanted to mention Leslie just passed away like a month ago.
Right.
I remember seeing it in the news. So I wrote down the date. No, I didn't. I didn't write down the date, but it was in October. Leslie had worked with him on Goldfinger. He and Anthony Newley had a big hit with the musical Stop the World, I Want to Get Off in 1961. And that's what brought him to the attention of the Bond producers. He would go on to write Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the musical. And he had a great quote. He was talking about writing the lyrics to this first version of the song that is ultimately not used. But he said he wrote the words to this in 1966 while he was at Kirk Douglas's Palm Springs vacation home. And he said, I remember smugly thinking, how good can it get? I was being handsomely paid to spend the weekend at the home of one of my favorite movie stars, writing the title song for a movie of one of my favorite heroes of fiction. I was the house guest of Spartacus, writing for James Bond.
Oh,
so
amazing.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, he knew how good he had it then. That's good.
Yep. And you know what was something else that he had going for him this time around? The title of this song is the first time a Bond title works really well as a pop song title.
So true.
Yeah.
Thunderball, nobody knows what that means at all. How do you make that into a song or a song title?
Those titles are awesome titles for books and for movies. Thunderball just sounds cool, but like you just implied, when you have to translate it to a pop song, you're like, what does it mean? But this one is just perfect.
Yeah.
It's probably the most clever title, I think, of all the Fleming titles, I think.
It's selling a concept. Now we say you only live twice. It's sort of so ingrained in all of our brains that we don't really think about it. But to hear that for the first time in 4 words, you've already got like it's selling this mystery already. You only live twice. What does that mean? Yeah. So yeah, as you say, it's brilliant opening to exploring a film and a song.
I love what you just said, because I often think about the fact that the title Star Wars, when we say Star Wars and think about it in our brain, it totally doesn't mean what it actually means, because basically we're all talking about a movie that could be called Space Battles, but which is a terrible, terrible title. But Star Wars, the 2 words together, just means something else to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of a good example of a terrible film that could be. Yeah. I'm not going to come up as one as good as Space Battles. Space Battles is good.
Space Battles.
I do have a Star Wars rip-off movie that, funnily enough, John Barry did the score for, called Star Crash. Do you know about Star Crash? It's really ropey, like Italian rip-off of Star Wars. They even have like lightsabers, and there's a Death Star, which is called, not the Death Star, but it might as well be. Anyway, it's really bad. It's got Caroline Munro in it as the sort of lead lady, who Bond fans will recognize as the helicopter pilot who winks at Roger Moore in his Lotus is Free and Spy Who Loved Me. That's a terrible film, but John Barry does the score. And the score is actually pretty good. So yeah, I'd recommend that if you're a Barry fan.
I saw like the first half of that movie because they talked about it on the podcast, How Did This Get Made? So I did watch it on Amazon Prime or something maybe, but I couldn't get through it. But I don't think I knew that it was John Barry. I don't remember seeing that in the credits. I like his Black Hole soundtrack a lot. Yeah,
he does a good space theme, does Barry. You should have stayed around for the scene where Christopher Plummer, who plays the sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi figure of the film, he says to sort of get everything, to tie everything up at the end, or to fix things, he just says, "Halt the passage of time," and then everything stops, and that basically solves everything. That's a great moment. That's a strong Deus Ex Machina to get you out.
I would like to be able to say that sometimes and have it work anyway.
Yeah.
That's good
Also,
writing.
David Hasselhoff is in that movie also, but he only shows up in the last half as well. So you've missed a treat. You need to go back and see that.
That sounds really good.
Mm.
So we have this first version, and basically Rogers maintains that the producers wanted a bigger name than her. But Brickus basically says, that's not really true. It was really just John and I had listened back to the song and knew that we could do better. I guess he would know what he's talking about. So I'm gonna believe him, I guess. And then they do a second attempt, which results in the song that we all know and love, right?
Yeah, but Nancy wasn't even the next choice on the list. She was still not like, oh, well, we can't get Julie Rogers. Let's get Nancy Sinatra. No, it didn't happen like that either.
Is this the story about Harry Saltzman and his idea that you're going to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I was going to say what Cubby wanted. Cubby wanted Frank. He wanted the dad.
Okay. Yeah. Because they were friends. I guess they socialized together.
Yeah.
Robbie,
yeah.
wasn't he really hoping Frank would sing Moonraker? Do you remember?
That's right. Yeah. I remember he was also in the running for Moonraker along with Kate Bush, weirdly. I mean, I can't really imagine a world in which Frank Sinatra and Kate Bush can both coexist, but yeah, we're living in it.
Oh, that is so weird.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised by that, Sarah, because I'd never seen that until we started researching for this. So I sort of forgot that Cubby wanted Frank to do it.
Yeah, I have a quote from John Barry who said Cubby Broccoli was a friend of Frank Sinatra's. So we phoned him up and said, we'd love you to sing this song in the movie. But Frank said, no, he didn't want to do it. But my daughter is really good. Have Nancy do it.
Nepotism.
I know.
Yeah. Did you see who Saltzman wanted to do this?
No.
This is great because every time I read something about Saltzman throwing his 2 cents out there, I always disagree with him. Like, I always think his ideas are terrible. Like when he said Paul McCartney wrote a good song, Live and Let Die. Now just who are we going to get to sing it?
Yeah.
Like, it's Paul McCartney, you dummy. This time around, supposedly, I saw this a couple places. Saltzman had the idea that a new face on the soul music scene might be a good match for this song, but John Barry disagreed with him and fought against it. And so because of that, Aretha Franklin was not asked to sing the theme to You Only Live Twice.
Oh, now that's interesting because I saw that John Barry was the one who wanted her, but I believe you.
No, I saw that Barry did not want her.
Okay.
According to John Burlingame.
I'll believe that one instead.
That would be, I was trying to think of what that might sound like. I think that would have been awesome.
I think it would have been pretty cool. And I'm going to bring up someone later on that might have done a song that, I think we could tie that to something later on.
I mean, I'm not a huge Aretha Franklin knowledge base. I don't know a ton about her, but the few songs that I know, I mean, I realize how great her voice is. Yeah. And I bet you that would have sounded cool. It would have been very different. It
couldn't have been the same type of song as we get.
I love Aretha. And she's got a totally different set of pipes on her to Nancy Sinatra. So yeah, you'd have to write something that's suited to that voice. And that's probably not the song that we've got. There's a parallel universe with its own amazing song. But I'm happy
you're probably right.
The version we live in. Yeah.
You've been a messin' where you shouldn't have been a messin'. And now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Nancy was selected.
Yeah, she had just had a big, huge hit with These Boots Are Made for Walking in 1966. Right. Yeah, so she was, very trendy. Talk about the swinging 60s. She epitomized it at that point, and in fact became the model later on for the Fembots and Austin Powers. Okay. They sang that song in the movie, so clearly some connections there. Yeah, she was big in 1966. So that was, much more timely than a woman singing the wedding song.
Now, Soft Cell, the band Soft Cell with Mark Almond, they did a cover of this song back in 85, I think. But I saw a quote from Mark Almond talking about why Nancy was selected. And of course, Mark Almond was not there at the time, but he was talking about why she was the perfect choice. And he said, Nancy Sinatra was the epitome of that swinging 60s hipness with her boots, her mini skirts, and her blonde hair. She was American as well, which I think was important because that gave the feeling that Bond was international, but there was also a sophistication to her as well.
Yeah, she is the first American to sing a Bond theme. We had a British person and 2 people from Wales before that.
Mm.
So you mentioned that Nancy, did you say she was super scared?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She said, this was a scary experience. John, whose music I treasure, wrote the song with Leslie Brickus. She said, the London Philharmonic played on this session real pressure. I was panic stricken from the very beginning of the whole procedure. I would rather have root canal surgery than go through that again. That's what she said.
I have never been like a huge fan of her singing on this. And because of that, I think I sort of have a meh opinion of her. But reading interviews with her and reading about what she went through really won me over to her side. She comes off as very likable. You know, she drags her sister Tina with her just because she's so nervous. The thing I couldn't believe is that they put her in the studio to record it and invited the press to come and be there while she was working. That is the craziest thing, because that's where
no
we
wonder
get
she
so
was
many...
nervous.
Yeah. That's not helpful. That's why we know a lot of these stories about, you know, what all went on, because it was printed in the newspapers and the magazines like within a week. It's crazy.
There were dozens of witnesses. Yeah, that's super uncool. Oh, and by the way, when she was offered this job that her father so nicely tried to get for her, she said to John Barry, "Are you sure you don't want Shirley Bassey instead?" She actually suggested Shirley Bassey herself. And John was like, no, we want you. We want your sound.
Yep. He says that. And in all the interviews I saw with him talking about the whole situation, he is so kind.
He really is.
And I get the sense, I don't know if you know much about Barry, if you've read any of his biographies, if there are any, I get the feeling that like if there was something Barry wanted and he had to fight for it, he was probably a good scrapper. Like he would stand up for what he wanted and you wouldn't want to make him mad. But it seems to me like he was very protective of Nancy Sinatra and like a kind person.
Yeah, I mean, they recorded it in London in Bayswater. So she's already a fish out of water. She's, come over from the States. She's in a new country. She's got a 50-piece orchestra, presumably playing along with her. So that's going to put the pressure on itself. And then you've got the world's press. I've been in a sort of voiceover situation for my job where there's been like 4 people staring at me through the glass, and that's enough to get me nervous. So I don't know how she's coping with literally 50-piece orchestra. It's insane.
I know. One article mentioned that a couple hours into the recording sessions, Nancy turned to John Barry and said, "Oh dear, I shouldn't have come all this way. You've got a problem child on your hands, John."
Oh, that poor girl.
I know.
Yeah.
It made me feel terrible for her.
Oh, that is so awful.
Like I said, John Barry, I think he does right by her, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But I want to tell you about John Richards. Did you read about engineer John Richards and what he said about her?
Hit me.
So, like I said, I was never a big Nancy Sinatra fan, but this research has me in her corner. It's reported that she sang this song almost 30 times in those recording sessions. And engineer John Richards said, "It was painful. We had to sit and work with her long after the orchestra had gone. She just didn't have the voice. It was evident from take one." So he was there that day and evidently not a fan of Miss Sinatra. But the more I read about Barry, the more I love him. He said the final bit or the final song was bits from like 25 different takes. I love that bit. Can we take that bit there? It's just common practice in the record world. So I love the fact that this guy is saying that she's terrible and Barry is like, hey, it's how we record. It's common. You take the best bits out of each take and combine it to a song.
And I saw a quote where he said, we took maybe about 12 takes. And then when she had gone, we literally took pieces from all those takes and stuck them all together. So he was, I think, even trying to protect her in that quote because, yeah, I've read other things that said it was at least 25 takes. And in that particular interview, he only said 12. So he, is trying to make it sound not as bad as it was. But I also agree that that's very, very common. And she has gotten so much flack for that. That is, like if you do any research on this song, that's one of the very first things you see. Oh, she took 25 takes, blah, blah, blah. She was so bad. Well, again, we just talked about the pressure and how many other people do that on a regular basis. We just don't hear about it.
Exactly. I mean, it's sort of assumed that when you listen to a song, it's all one take. But I imagine, in the record producing business, it's going to be stitched together from a lot of different takes, whoever you're working with. I remember finding out that there's a song by Whitney Houston and George Michael called If I Told You That. And I heard, rather than sort of admitting that they never actually met, they recorded their vocals in different countries at different times. And thinking, gosh, what a sham that, they weren't even in the same room together. But then you realize, actually, this is how it works these days.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. Especially now.
Now, one thing that I learned that I had no clue is that here in America, the single release was a totally different song.
Right.
I mean, it's the same song, but a totally different recording. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
I had no idea about this, but this means that that's not played on the radio over there. You don't get sort of exposure to this version of the song yourselves.
No, I mean, I've never heard this song on the radio, either version. But
Oh, really?
I would have to think that as the years have gone on, that American version that they recorded, it's got to be regarded as like the inferior version.
Well, right.
Here in the US, she came back and recorded a totally different song. It was produced by a guy named Lee Hazelwood and arranged by a guitar player named Billy Strange.
Right.
And these guys, when I actually looked into who they are, they're both actually influential musicians, but their version is just, they really do Americanize it.
Mhm.
The guitar becomes more prominent, the twangy kind of guitar, and the lushness of the orchestra and the strings that sounds so good as a Bond song is, that's what they try to jettison.
Oh, yeah. They're trying to make it more radio friendly for the US instead of, leaving it as it is. Lee Hazelwood was her producer for a long time. He's the one that worked with her on These Boots Are Made for Walking. It was originally a song he was singing, and that's another story. She was like, I want this song. I think this would be a good song for me. But yeah, he was her longtime collaborator, producer, kind of caretaker almost.
It reminds me of the Johnny Cash version of Thunderball. It's kind of been given a bit of that twang.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
A Western film. Yeah.
And speaking of Johnny Cash, when this was released, it was a double A side. The other side of this record, which I believe was the single, and then they flipped it and released this too, was a song by Johnny Cash and written with his wife called Jackson.
Huh, I don't know that song.
Yeah.
And I also don't know why people keep thinking that country Western music goes together with James Bond. It makes no sense.
I don't know. And I did not go listen to Jackson or her version of it to see how it fit in with this song. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre to think that, yeah, Johnny Cash and the James Bond theme would be on the same record.
Pretty crazy. This guy, Lee Hazelwood, now he was a musician as well. He, like Sarah said, and so many bands from the 80s and 90s have covered his songs. I just wrote down a few: Primal Scream, Lydia Lunch, Beck, The Tubes, Jesus and Mary Chain, KMFDM, and Nick Cave have all covered this guy's songs. And then Billy Strange, the guitarist, he is part of this group of musicians called the Wrecking Crew.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Robbie. I don't really know too much about them. It's like a group of session musicians who have worked with bands all throughout the 60s and 70s. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were inducted in 2007, but they played with the Everly Brothers, Simon and Garfunkel, the Grassroots, the Carpenters, the Partridge Family, or they are on over 1,000 records as the backing band.
Wow.
Famous artist. The guy's a talented musician. It's just he destroys this song.
Yeah.
He did what he was asked to do.
Yeah, I guess he did.
And poor Nancy, think of it from her position, because she's already gone through the trauma of recording it in London. And from her perspective, she thinks it's not gone well, or it was traumatic anyway. And then she's asked to come back and do it again. She must be thinking, oh no, it stank so bad, I have to go and re-record it. It must have been hard for her to go back in the studio and actually deliver a performance. But I don't know vocally if it matches up to what she did in London, but she sounds okay to me. I don't know how many takes it took.
They have her do some harmonies on the American one. She does some harmonies that aren't in the...
That was the neat little thing that they did. What did she say? They did like a little Petula Clark kind of double tracking with it, which was a nice pun. They're double tracking a song, You Only Live Twice. So
nice.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you say something earlier that there's like yet another version of the song or something?
There is indeed. Yes.
Because I have no notes on that.
Okay. Well, I do, because I'm, doing all this research, and I found some interesting articles on good websites, like MI6 was, I think, where I found this. There is yet another version of this song, completely different from these two, by a woman named Lorraine Chandler. Now, she was a woman from Detroit who was a singer and a songwriter and producer. And she had a couple of songs she released in, I think it was in 67. They were kind of regional hits, but they didn't really go anywhere. While she was trying to kind of get established as a singer, she recorded another version of You Only Live Twice. And it was on this new label called Pied Piper. She was kind of a part of that and its inception and right there from the start. Well, it never got released. Record company went defunct. But during the mid 80s, a British record executive named Adi Crosdell, he unearthed a copy of this. Well, he got a whole bunch of the Pied Piper production stuff, and they were in the RCA vaults. And he found this song, You Only Live Twice, and he started playing it, and it became this cult hit, especially up in the north of England. And in the previous podcast that we just did, Brian, I talked about Northern Soul.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big hit with the Northern Soul crowd. And she ended up, this is in the 80s now. She had been living in LA, but she started coming over to England and touring in the clubs in the north of England and the Northern Soul circuit, so to speak, singing this song and a bunch of her other songs that had been unearthed as a result of this guy. I listened to that version, and I would say this is more what we would have expected if Aretha Franklin had been allowed to sing the Bond theme.
Ah, interesting.
I don't think I understand. Like, is it a John Barry written song?
No.
So this is just a case of a woman in 1967 or something decided to record a song called You Only Live Twice, even though she was only popular in Detroit.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Then I think any claims that this is an unofficial Bond song, like a third version of it, I think that's fraudulent, because I bet you John Barry was completely unaware of this.
He wasn't on the Northern Soul scene. If he'd have been there in the 80s with his chalk powder on the floor doing a bit of Northern Soul, then he might have rights to be outraged by the flagrant plagiarism. No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an official by any means, sanctioned Bond theme, but the fact that it became really popular in England, and I just thought it was kind of cool. Like, I guess she was inspired by the movie and was like, I'm going to do a Bond theme and my own Bond theme. And it just resurfaced years later.
Yeah, I guess the story is neat that a decade later, it is a popular song that allows her that it allows her to actually tour. I'm sure it was a small tour to support that song. But all my music in my car is on a USB stick, and I have the Bond themes in a directory. And actually, if you look in the Bond theme directory, right in there is Boy George, No Time to Die. Because my love for Boy George is so strong that I see it as an unofficial theme that has worth.
Okay.
But I don't love this woman enough to say the same.
Did you listen to the song?
I did not, but maybe I'll check it out.
Well, it's not bad. It's a lot more like you would expect, kind of more in the Goldfinger vein, a little more bombastic, a little more jazzy kind of sounding, not subdued like the one we got. It's an interesting interpretation of the theme. I think it's worth checking out.
Okay. Have you heard that Boy George song?
I did at the time when it kind of got released or leaked. I don't know if he just released it himself because he did chosen. So he was like, well, let's just put it out there. It's okay. I think there's been better also rans of the Bond theme world. But if you're a fan, I don't want to upset you too much by slagging it off. So yeah, I think it was okay. The only other alternative version of No Time to Die I've heard was written by Mark Ronson, the producer who worked with Amy Winehouse and did all sorts of things. Mark Ronson did a version, or it's a whole new song, which had sort of vocals by an unknown artist. But that was the only other version I heard floating around, sort of together with Billie Eilish. I think Billie is the best version.
That's cool. I'll have to search out that Mark Ronson one, though, because I do like him.
There's no time to die. There's no last goodbye. I'll see you on the other side. But as long as there's a world with you and I, there's no time to die. There's no time to die.
So those are the three versions of the songs. I did write down a couple reviews of the Nancy Sinatra song. We usually try to throw a couple reviews on our podcast, Robbie. So I have two, one from Variety and one from Rolling Stone. More or less, these are all modern day things. However, at the time of the release of the soundtrack back in 1967, Variety did review it. They said that Barry's score is more subdued and romantic than his past 007 music, and the title song could catch on.
Oh, could it? Oh, all right.
So decades later, in October of 2021, Variety ranked all of the Bond themes, to get people psyched for the new movie. And they ranked this one at number 4 out of all the themes. And they said Sinatra recorded 2 different versions of this song, and either will suffice in bringing the listener into the dream state suggested in John Barry and Leslie Bricuss's exquisite song, one of the greatest of all 1960s movie ballads. In the hands of Sinatra and her writers and producers, the theme became clearer. Ye must be born again as a lucid dreamer with a rich fantasy life beyond mundane life. It's on par with the windmills of your mind. Yet another great mind game from the period. So Near the end there, it gets really hoity-toity. But I did like one of the greatest movie songs of the whole decade of the 60s. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, it's got a whimsical sound to it, which actually is very not of the 60s. It's quite timeless. They could have gone down the route of doing these boots are made for walking kind of sound, the sort of thing that Madonna did when she did the song for Austin Powers. What was that called? Beautiful Stranger, which is trying to mimic that 60s sound. They could have very easily gone down that route with this. And actually, Barry has done something which doesn't root it so much in the 60s at all. It sounds quite timeless, I think.
Agreed. And this Windmills of Your Mind, does anyone know that song? Because I know that Alison Moyet covered it on her Voices album, but I don't think I even know what movie that's from. Like, I wonder if it's a much bigger song outside of the US, or if I'm just ignorant of it.
Wouldn't that be like The Man of La Mancha?
I don't know which film it's from, but I know the song quite well. It's sort of a standard, which you may hear on kind of an oldies radio station over here. So, and that is very much a 60s sound as well. But it's very, very slow and kind of wistful.
Wistful is a great word to describe this song as well. You Only Live Twice. I think that's a good adjective for how she portrays how she gets the ideas across in the song. It's very wistful. Actually,
we're now learning it's just that she was terrified. That's the main emotion she's going with. It's terrifying. Hey. But it sounds wistful on retrospect.
It works.
Yeah, she was. I have a quote that I didn't mention earlier, but she said, "I was really scared. I knew this was nitty gritty singing. This wasn't pretend singing, silliness the way I was doing on my songs." So she was pretty scared.
Oh, yeah. She said something. I had a quote too about something about like, I was used to my little octave and a half, she said. So she even acknowledges she doesn't have a great range. She said, this was really rangy.
She's in at the deep end, and the deep end is full of piranha, flesh-eating piranha, just to tie it in with You Only Live Twice. And she's realizing she's out of her depth and the piranhas are coming. But hey, she's survived somehow.
She did a good job. So at the time of Spector's release, this was back in 2015, the Rolling Stone magazine did the same thing that Variety did earlier this year. They ranked all the songs, and Rolling Stone ranked this one at number 3, even higher than Variety. And they said that the rising whirl of strings that kicks off this formative 1967 Bond theme might just be Barry's finest moment. Playing off the film's Japanese setting, Barry augments a breezily majestic melody with the exotic plink of bamboo xylophones, and Nancy Sinatra's voice trembles around them in style. More recently, the season 5 finale of Mad Men confirmed what audience at the time knew right away. This song is a classic. That was something I didn't remember. I love the show Mad Men. It's one of my favorite shows in the history of television, and I don't remember this song being on it.
It's the final moment of, season 5, did you say? It's like a montage of all the characters and where they're going in life. And it's really powerful. I loved Mad Men at the time. I was already a Bond fan. So when that happened, you had to sort of scrape me off the ceiling afterwards. I thought it was amazing.
Such a good show. Okay, so I just gave some reviews. I'm going to ask you guys how you rank the song, what you guys think about it. But before we do that, I'll give you some time to think. Before we do that, do we have any, last time we talked, I think, about some interesting covers of the songs or how the song affected music, how Thunderball affected music or how Goldfinger affected music. Did this song affect music, influence modern music? And were there any good covers that you guys found?
Well, I was aware of one by Bjork, which was recorded maybe 2007 or 2000, quite recently. And it's produced, or at least arranged, by David Arnold, who, of course, did a lot of the Bond themes for the Brosnan and Craig era. So he's on board for that and does quite an interesting arrangement. It's got lots of like bleepy bloopy sounds in it, which sounds quite sort of space age, or what they thought the space age would sound like in 1967 anyway. It's kind of retro futuristic sci-fi sounds. And Bjork, of course, is sort of on her own world, singing a melody which is in the same ballpark as You Only Live Twice, but it's it's different enough to be interesting. Yeah. So that's quite a nice alternative version, I think.
You know what? I avoided all Bond stuff until I saw No Time to Die. And then when I had finally seen it, I went and I read all the reviews and I just started watching promotional things online. And I watched a couple interviews with David Arnold, who's just such a good guy. He's great to be interviewed, and he loves Bond so much. He loves the Bond music so much. And he's happy to talk about it. Like, they kicked him to the curb, but he's still happy to talk with anybody about his work with Bond, and he's so kind about it. I would love to see David Arnold come back and write more music, because I think he is second only to John Barry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing that he wasn't got back in, because originally for No Time to Die, they hired a composer called Dan Romer, who nobody had really heard of, but he'd collaborated with the director Cary Fukunaga before. So I think it was a case of, look, you can hire me as director as long as I can bring my friend in who's going to do the soundtrack. So they had Dan Roma around for a few months, and he handed in something which was considered too left field, not kind of Bondian enough. So conversation was had where it was like, okay, let's get someone else in. I wonder if David Arnold must have been on their shortlist at that point to get a dependable, safe pair of hands in who can turn around the score. He's done it before, 5 times already. So he'd have been a very safe pair of hands. But they went with Hans Zimmer, and I'm not upset with that. I think he's done a really good score, but it's interesting that Arnold didn't do it. He was at the premiere. I saw him on the red carpet for the premiere. So he's, as you say, he's a very kind of, easygoing guy, and he's happy to get involved, even if he's not working on the film. He's happy to show his face.
Yeah, he's a good Bond ambassador.
Yeah, I hope he's not done. I think there's definitely more in him as a composer for Bond. So yeah, I hope he comes back at some point.
Me too. Sarah, did you find any cool covers or influences on other music?
Well, yeah, I found a bunch of covers, so many covers. This is actually one of the most covered Bond songs. As you mentioned, the soft cell version, I listened to that. It was the B-side of a song called, I lost it. Oh, Soul Inside. And it was okay. I think Mark Allman had a good voice for it, but went on a little too long.
The soft cell version goes on for 6 minutes, and they don't really. It's like, there's not more story to tell. It's just the same song, but more of it. Yeah,
I don't know a lot about.
They're obviously using they're using synthesizers instead of strings, aren't they, for the sort of
sure
classic refrain, which I think is, if we're honest, it's the heart of the song is the orchestra doing those strings. So once you've lost the strings, you've kind of lost the heart of the song for me.
Yeah, it was okay. It was not terrible. One I did think was terrible, and that's the first thing I wrote about it, was the Coldplay version.
Yes, that was terrible.
Oh, that was so.
You do
very
surprise
bad.
me.
Really?
That was a B-side, wasn't it? It's one of the early.
Yeah, the B-side of
hits.
Don't Panic.
Don't Panic. That's right. So they were only just getting going. So it's quite a bold statement to cover a Bond theme when you haven't established yourself, but they have now. So I guess I'll let them off. But yeah, I'm not Coldplay's biggest fan, I have to say.
Yeah, neither am I.
I don't mind. I have a couple of their albums, and yeah, I don't hate them, but this version, I hated it. Oh, he changed the words, and it just was in a different key, and there was too many things about it that weren't what I wanted. And I could only listen to about a minute of it where I said, oh, I got to stop this. It's just no good.
Wow. You only live twice, but you can't even listen once.
Right. Nice. Yeah. And then Shirley Bassey did go ahead and do it in 2007 on her album, Get the Party Started. And wow, talk about another crazy version.
Nothing gets a party started like cranking You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, I know. Oh, but she completely reimagined it. It is really weird. All different kinds of chords and keys, totally changes the sound of the song, which you would expect. This is why we didn't have her do it back in 1967, because it's a totally different sound. I didn't like it. I mean, I think that was partly the trying to be hip and cool part of it too. It did not suit me at all.
It's a strange choice for her to go back and do a Bond theme. I'd have expected her to do Man with the Golden Gun or something that's a bit more, oomph, a bit more oomph to it than this one. I'd like to have heard her version of Fiore's Only as well, even though it's more of a ballad. But this is not really Bassey's territory. You only live twice, I don't think.
No. Those are all the covers that I wanted to talk about, but you keep referring to influence on modern music. And I have to say that could only mean one thing.
Yeah, I actually phrased it that way for your benefit.
Yes, indeed. And this is my favorite usage of anything to do with You Only Live Twice. And that would be in the song Millennium by Robbie Williams.
Robbie.
Yes, I love Robbie Williams. I love this song. And it's such a cool thing that he wanted to do this. He's the one that came up with the idea of the song. He wanted to use the string section for You Only Live Twice, but he wanted to put it to a hip hop beat. And once they decided that, it was like, okay, well, now you got to figure out what beat. So they couldn't actually use the sample from the movie. Well, you know why?
Why?
Too much money. It cost too much to do that. It was going to cost too much. I think it was about 60,000 pounds to get the sample for it. And recording it again was going to cost between 6,000 and 7,000 pounds.
Robbie Williams can't afford that.
Well, this was only his second album. This was, 1998. He was still, he come off the success of Take That, but he was still kind of establishing himself as a solo artist. And they cut the orchestra in half. They only used a 26-piece string orchestra, a harp, and 4 French horns. So they got what they wanted. They got the sound that they wanted, and they were only going to use it in the beginning at first, in the chorus. But then they were like, oh, this is too good. We've got to use it throughout the entire song, in which they did. And of course, it was a huge hit. It was number 1 in the UK. So good choice for him to use in this song.
I'm impressed he's even on your radars over there, Robbie Williams, because I didn't think he hasn't cracked the States, has he, as a pop star?
No, and because of that, he's my second favorite Robbie after yourself. Well, yeah, we actually are pretty big fans. We flew to Las Vegas a couple years ago to see him in concert because he played a very rare U.S. appearance in Las Vegas. So that's on the other side of the country from us. So it was a big haul to go. But yeah, we really love him, and we have all his records. I realize that it is a very different thing. Robbie in the UK is pretty huge. I know he was huge back, and Sing When You're Winning and stuff like that. But how is his level of fame at this point?
Well, he's a household name, but actually in terms of charts, music-wise, I don't think he's done anything, that's troubled the top 10 in about 10 years. But he's such a household name now. If he were to appear, on Saturday night TV, he'd be like a really big name over here. So he's he's probably our Michael Bublé, although that's maybe praising him with faint praise. I don't know. He's doing all right for himself. He came from a boy band called Take That over here. He's kind of stitched into our pop culture for at least 20, 30 years now. So once you've got that, once you're kind of ingrained into pop culture over here, that's it. You're sort of set for life.
Yeah. I feel like he's starting to take maybe more of an elder statesman role as he gets older, as approaches his 5th decade. So
gosh,
I know.
And then when we saw him in Vegas, it was very much like a showman.
It was a Vegas show. That was what he wanted to do. So he was doing, that kind of thing. It wasn't like him singing his hits. It was, singing standards and had crazy showgirls and crazy sets.
I can see that's his comfort zone completely.
Right in the middle of the show, he took a little break and Shady Tree came out and did some stand-up.
That I would pay to see that.
Shady Tree. Oh boy.
So that didn't really happen. Any other cover versions? Anything?
None that I would like to mention other than my own at karaoke. Which I believe I have done.
It's a tough one at karaoke. I've done These Boots Made for Walking. If I was going to go down the Nancy Sinatra route, I would go there. I think that's an easier one to do at karaoke because You Only Live Twice. You do have to sound quite sort of vulnerable and wistful, and that's not my vibe when I'm at karaoke. I need to just shout. And,
Well, I never said I did it well.
So the only other one I found, or I had written down, I don't know anything about this. I just found this version and I want to use it at the end of the episode as the music because I really, really liked it. There's a duo called Bonsai Pop. I don't know anything about them. It's a man and a woman. He plays acoustic guitar and she plays one of those keyboards that you blow into.
Is it a melodica?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And she's the singer. They do a really nice version of it and you'll get to hear it at the end of this episode.
Lovely. Are they a Japanese band? Do you know?
They are not.
That would be a nice little link with You Only Live Twice, obviously, which is
true.
Mainly set in Japan.
We're going to wrap up pretty soon because we've kept Robbie really, really long.
Indeed.
But guys, like I said before, this is either number 2 or number 3 in terms of Barry scores for me. I really love this one. I think like in this day and age, you always see things online like, if you want a Japanese sounding score today, you wouldn't go to a British guy to write it. You would go to somebody from Japan. But, times are different. Bond was used to working with John Barry. Do you guys think he was successful in, he's not a Japanese musician. He's not writing Japanese music, but do you get the feeling that you're listening to appropriate music for an adventure in Japan?
This is an interesting question because my partner is a bit of a Japanophile. He's actually from Malaysia, but so he can speak Japanese. He's been to Japan. So I was interested in like showing him the film and showing him the soundtrack. And he's not convinced that it sounds authentically Japanese, particularly there's a wedding scene in the film, which leans very heavily into that sort of Japanese sound. I know that they used in the orchestra for the soundtrack, they used a koto, which is the kind of the plucky, the string instrument that you can hear a lot through the soundtrack. So at least they got some authentic Japanese instruments in, but they just didn't kind of get an authentic Japanese person to at least be consulted on what sounded like a true Japanese sound. But, you know, it's back in 1967, most people, at least seeing it in Britain, they would never have even left the country, you know, so just the very idea of going to Japan was beyond their concept. So to see anything that sounded different and otherworldly, at least they were giving it a go and trying to evoke the sounds of the East. Although I think it's very much a sort of a Western sound of the East, if that makes sense.
When you were watching the movie with your partner, even if he wasn't too impressed by the music, when he saw Sean Connery in his Japanese makeup and wig, did he say, well, they nailed that. He looks exactly like a Japanese man.
Oh, man. I sort of, my toes were curling before we did.
I hope you warned him.
What's weird about that, because I watched the film again recently, and he gets this whole Japanese makeover with plastic surgery and a really bad wig, which just makes him look like he's from the planet Vulcan. It doesn't make sense.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
So he has that for a few scenes, and then when he gets into the base, you know, at the end where he's confronting Blofeld, I was like, hang on, he looks normal again. He looks like a Scotsman. When did his makeup fall off? And it's never really explained. It's just sort of, I think somebody must have gone, this is not a good look for Sean Connery. We need to sort of just phase it out gently. Yeah. So they kind of just forgot that idea, and he somehow becomes just a normal looking person rather than a Vulcan again.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
It didn't need to keep going because it wasn't good.
And one other observation that I wanted to make about the score in general, you know, John Barry had to be thinking like, this is going to be a relief, because last time they came to me and asked me to do a score for him, they wanted me to come up with music that made you feel like you were underwater, because half of that movie was underwater. At least this time it's just going to be a normal movie and I could just write normal music. But then they say to him, hey, by the way, you've got to write music that makes people think that they're in outer space. I think you did a great job. I don't know exactly what outer space music sounds like, but this CD has it to my ear. I think it's fantastic. Do you guys agree with that?
For orchestral music, yes, this is good. You know, obviously now that we have synthesizers, keyboards, and things like that, I think we get music that sounds a lot more spacey than what John Barry has. But again, for an orchestral interpretation of space, I think this is excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Space March or Capsule in Space, that kind of motif comes back a couple of times in the film, because the same thing happens 3 times. You get the spacecraft kidnapped at the beginning, then it happens to a Russian spacecraft in the middle of the film, so the theme comes back. Then it happens a 3rd time at the end, which is when like World War III is being prompted. James Bond has to stop World War III from happening. But because we've heard that theme twice already, and the stakes are suddenly more urgent, it's like it's played at double speed, so it's a lot more frantic. Suddenly the theme, the Capsule in Space theme, it's suddenly a lot more frantic, which kind of works because it's the end of the film. You need it to sound a bit more urgent, but it's quite funny to hear it sped up like that.
That's probably Peter Hunt. He probably just sped it up because he wanted to. John Barry probably didn't play it faster.
Let's wrap it up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of wrapping it up, we are going to wrap up our discussion of You Only Live Twice. We've talked about the song. We've had some reviews. So what do we think about it? What do we think about this song? Why don't we let our guest go first, Sarah, and give us his final word on You Only Live Twice?
Well, it's a definite keeper from me. I tried to do my top 5 songs recently, and it's so difficult. You've got to have A View to a Kill. You've got to have Live and Let Die. I can't live without Diamonds Are Forever. They're my top 3. But then it's a race to get into the top 5. And I think You Only Live Twice might squeak in there, actually. I think it's not an instant, you know, it doesn't hit you between the eyes, but it's very beautiful. It's one of those melodies that stays with you much more than Sam Smith, which is not saying much. But, you know, I think as that Rolling Stone or Variety review said, it's one of those huge sounds of the 60s, which is iconic. I'm giving it top 5 status, I think.
Nice. Very nice. Sarah, let me go next because I want to end on a positive note. So I'm going to let you go last.
Oh, okay.
All right. So guys, here's the thing. Like I said, I've I've never been a Nancy Sinatra fan. I never have connected with her through this song, but doing this research has sort of changed that. And now I feel a little guilty when I look at my Bond rankings of theme songs. I feel a little guilty where I have her placed. Right now, as my list exists, this is at number 15. Now, it was traditionally at number 14 for me, but No Time to Die had to be added to the list, so everything got bumped. But the thing is, I really love this song. Like, the orchestration is wonderful. There's a version on YouTube by an orchestra called the Rainbow Room Dance Orchestra. And they have a guy, they don't have a singer, but they have a guy who plays like a horn. He plays the main vocal melody line on a horn. I could listen to that video a dozen times in a row. It's so beautiful. And I think that the Bond song is beautiful as well. The music. I think all my life I have just been so unimpressed by her vocal. I came to love Shirley Bassey. I've always loved Tom Jones. Louis Armstrong is such a voice. Paul McCartney, such a voice. These early songs are so much about the singers to me. It's about John Barry's orchestra and about a super talented singer who can emote and who can get you pumped for the movie. And I understand that this song is not trying to make you pumped for a movie. It's a totally different kind of idea for a Bond theme. The song is brilliant. Her vocals, I think, just have always kept me from really embracing the song. So I have it at 15. I was going to change it today because of how much I love her, but I said, you know what, wait a week and let your love of poor, put upon, scared Nancy Sinatra sort of dissipate a little bit, and then see if you want to change the ranking. So right now, I'm going to say this is a good song with a great orchestration that suffers a little bit because of the performance of the singer. So I put it at 15. If I had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 100 record adapters, I would give it an 85. So that's probably higher than you thought I would give it.
Well, yeah.
Because I pretty much like all the Bond songs quite a bit up to a certain point. And then it doesn't gradually turn bad. It just all of a sudden turns bad on my list. So,
bit of a cliff.
So yeah. So even at like number 15, they're still really good songs. So that's what I think.
Interesting.
It's a stunned silence from me.
Well, I don't know if you'll be stunned by this or not. I hope you're at least pleased. This is my favorite James Bond theme.
Whoa, what?
Whoa, let's get the press. I'm getting them on the phone right now.
Come on, gather around. Yeah, this I love this song. I think it's a gorgeous song. I have no problem with the vocals. I don't care at all about how she sounds as far as quality. You know, I think she's just perfect for this. I think it's just a beautiful song. Those strings, those first few notes that you hear, they do get stuck in your head. They are very catchy and very lovely. I love the whole tone of the song. It just gives me this good feeling. You know, I get an emotional reaction hearing this song because it's just so lovely. And I think I could sing not quite as well as Nancy even, but I think that's why I appreciate her struggles and her efforts on here. And I think that the fact that John Barry did what he did with it and made it as good as it is, you know, that's obviously a credit to him. Yeah, it's my favorite. No qualms about it.
That's awesome.
These are glowing words. Yeah, well done.
I may not agree, but I love how much you love this song. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Man, John Barry, I don't know what it is. As I get older, the older I get, the more and more I love John Barry. Like when I was collecting these CDs back in the 90s, it seemed crazy to me that I could be even more into John Barry than I was then. But at this point in my life, I mean, I love John Barry. I freaking love John Barry.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, it's just like me, right? You never thought you could love me as
That's
much
true.
as
Back in the 90s, I was like, oh, man, I love Sarah more than I ever will. But today I woke up and I said, I love her the most that I ever have loved her.
You haven't let the huge rift of not liking You Only Live Twice equally come between you. And that's a beautiful thing.
No, I'm able to look past that. The only reason I can look past it is because I know that much like me, Sarah is a big fan of Lazenby. If we argued on Lazenby, that would sour everything. But I'm able to put all other differences aside because she's also a fan of On Her Majesty's.
I mean, it's a Christmas film for me. So the season's just around the corner. I hope you're dusting
That's awesome.
Dust off that jacket as we speak. Yeah.
There you go. Now, speaking of Christmas, Robbie.
Oh, yes.
One thing that I was thinking about the other day is that your book, The Quantum of Silliness, is perfectly sized for a Christmas stocking, isn't it?
You're absolutely correct. We've gone from soft sell to hard sell.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not unimpressed by that. Yeah, you're very kind to say so. It's still in hardback, so it still looks quite considerable in its status, but it is in size quite small, as is the title would suggest. It's just a quantum of silliness. So yeah, it would fit in any stocking. Even the smallest of stockings would happily house such a gift.
That's right. The book may be small in size, but it's big on laughs. If you are a fan of James Bond, you will especially love it. If you're a fan of puns and clever jokes, you'll love it as well. It's just that you're not going to get all the Bond references. So go to your favorite bookshop and demand that they order Quantum of Silliness by Robbie Sims, funniest book you'll read this year, and treat yourself for Christmas time. It's great.
Yourself and your friends.
Yeah, you might as well get a couple for your friends.
You're very kind. And I expect by January, the secondhand shops will be full of them as a consequence. But I don't mind. I've made my sale by that point. So, I'm happy.
After that, who cares?
So when you were watching No Time to Die in the theaters, were you already planning jokes for the sequel?
I tried not to. I was thinking, it's going to spoil my enjoyment if I'm sat there going, I think you'll find if I put that quote with that quote, it will be quite clever. But I tried to turn my brain off. And actually I did manage to, just watch it as a film and not focus too much on what terrible puns could I squeeze out of every line. Now that it's kind of out to enjoy it on home release, that changes everything. I'm going to be going for it scene by scene and trying to
there we go.
Get as much geekiness out of it as I can. And why not?
Indeed.
Exactly. That'll be awesome. And if people want to get a sneak peek at these jokes, where can they see them?
Quantum of Silliness, the book, is out now to buy online or perhaps in your local bookshop if they're incredibly discerning. And you can also follow me on Twitter. I've got a handle there, which is @the_Tchaikovsky. A long story, won't go into it now. And I'm also on Instagram these days, where I kind of do a half-hearted, keep it going by posting something every couple of days. But my heart's not really in it, if I'm honest. So you can find me there.
Like us.
I think that's the best way to approach Instagram. So I'm on there @Quantum of Silliness. So you can find me there.
Awesome. And that's that Twitter account is where you're going to want to be when Robbie gets the DVD or the Blu-ray for Christmas from Santa Claus, and he starts crafting those jokes and he tries to hone them for the inevitable next book. Those early takes of the jokes will be on that Twitter account, so you'll want to give him a follow. Be sure to do that by Christmas, if not today. Christmas at the latest.
What are you waiting for? Do it now.
That's right. So, Robbie, thanks so much for giving us more of your time. We always love talking to you about Bond. We only get to do this like twice a year because it's already kind of ballsy for us to try to throw a podcast out into the world of the Bond podcasts because there's so many good ones that know everything about Bond. And we're really just pop music people. But I love Bond so much, I just want to do it. So I appreciate you being willing to join us. And next time, we try to do 2 a year. The next one is going to be On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Would you mind if I reached out to you again next year when it's time to do that and see if you're free?
Well, it sounds like we're in for a gush fest with that one, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. We don't have all the time in the world. We've got 6 months to think about it, but I'm definitely up for that. Of course, I love waxing lyrical with you guys about these scores. So yeah, count me in.
Glad to hear it.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to wish you the best for the upcoming holidays, and we will reach out to you in 2022 to talk some more Bond.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I love hearing your takes on these songs and wish you all the best for Christmas and New Year, and hopefully in 2022. I can't believe that's an actual year that's going to happen in our lives, but here it comes. We'll do something else. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Robbie.
Strange